traditionally, the first webinar of the year is when board members and committee folks gather and talk about what's on tap for CoSA, what we're looking at, and what we're involved in. And we're really happy to have an opportunity to share that with all of you. I'm pleased to turn the program over to today's moderator, CoSA President Patricia Smith-Mansfield. Tricia?
Thank you, Ann. So I'd like to welcome everybody here today to learn what we're going to be doing for 2017. We're pretty excited about the things that we have been doing and what will be taking place. So the agenda's on the screen right now, and let me just briefly go through it. We've been working on a sustainability task force with Jack Warner today, one of the task force co-chairs, going to give us an update on some of the activities and discussions the Sustainability Task Force has been doing. After that, we'll turn the time over to Jen Corridon, who's the chair of the Advocacy Committee, and to give an update, especially with the transition that's been going on. There's been a lot going on in the Advocacy Committee. Excuse me. After that, we have Veronica Masso, who will be giving a SERI update. The State Electronic Records Initiative is going strong. It's one of the foundation programs of CoSA. And Barbara Teague, who is a contractor and a committee member, will be able to contribute to that discussion. After the SERI update, we'll turn the time over to Shelley Thompson, who's the chair of the I think it's the Education and Training Committee, and we'll be going over the program webinars that are coming up this year. She also will be giving an update. No, I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention. She will be giving information about the awards program. She's a committee member of the awards program, and she will be giving information about the awards that we give out, and hoping to entice some of you to present some of your good employees to some of the awards that we have. So let's turn the time over to Jack. Hope he does a better job in talking than I have so far. Jack, please tell us about the Sustainability Task Force.
Okay, thank you, Tricia, and I thought you did a fine job. So my name is John D. Warner, Jr. I go by Jack. I'm the State Archivist in Massachusetts, and I'm fairly new to the board. And as the slide in front of you shows, there is a task force that came out of our CoSA, the Council of State Archivists, mid-year meeting, which occurred in March last year. So March of 16, and one of the documents that we talked about was a document that was put together by the then leadership, still leadership, called the Council of State Archivists, A Case for Sustainability. And you can find this on the CoSA website under the About section through the About hyperlink. Persons who put this plan together, this Case for Sustainability, include Matt Blessing, who was then president, Patricia Smith-Mansfield, who's now president, and Steve Murray, who's the treasurer, who still is the treasurer. But with the overarching guidance, I think, and very well sustained efforts of Ann Ackerson. So sustainability basically is about where you are and where you want to go, and whether you think you're going to where you're going in an efficient way. So one of the Case for Sustainability's purposes was to sort of take stock of where the organization is now. And some of the thinking about this was that the CoSA is a strong organization. It's got a lot of committed members. It's a volunteer board. People are very strongly committed to it, hence the meeting today. But it's dependent on member dues, which are dues from the states and territories, and we've been dependent also on grant funds coming from the federal government, particularly for things like SERI and IPER and things like that. So, as everybody knows, all grants at some point must end, and the idea is, how do we create an organization that has sustainability. Where are we going to be in 3 to 5 years, and where we would be in the long term, longer down the road from there. So we had the annual meeting, the mid-year meeting, and what we want to try and do is to come up with a sort of sense of where we are, building on the case for sustainability, which I urge everyone to read. And the membership and the board felt it strongly enough that we decided to create a task force, and you can see the names of the people who are involved in it, and they're all absolutely top-notch. And what we did was as the slide says, we did an environmental scan member survey. We posted questions, which we got respondents from about half the states. And we called people one-on-one to do interviews. And who do we call? We called people like the people who run, Kathleen Williams, who runs the National Historical Publications and Records Commission. We talked to our colleagues in things like the National Association of Secretaries of State. There's a lot of acronyms here, but in the National Association of Governors, the National Association of State CIOs, NASCIO, the Library Associations, National Association, and also people like Vicki Walsh, who has been a friend and a member on this board and is now sort of an ex officio member of this board, and is a woman of great wisdom and experience, and just sort of where we've been and where we're going. So the SWOT survey, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, basically did in line with that same thing. So we could go to the next slide, I think. What we learned, CoSA has an excellent reputation. We're an organization that sort of, we kind of punch above our weight, if you will, insofar as we're in every state government and territorial government in some form or another. Some places call them a historical library or historical society, but in any case, what we're charged with is preserving the past for the future. We're all about public access to public records. So what we decided to do with this strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat analysis, along with the phone calls and the surveys, was to try and come up with a number of scenarios as to where we're going from here. And we're meeting monthly. The Sustainability Task Force has, I think, an excellent work plan. We've met a large number of our tasks and targets, and what we're going to try and do is come up with scenarios as to where the organization goes, as I said, in 3 to 5 years. One scenario would be, you know what, we're doing okay. We're going to stick to kind of what we're doing. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. And I would say that's certainly a conversation starter, because there's lots of people who are, I think, of the opinion, whether they're part of CoSA or outside observers or board members, that things are not going as well as they could be. So other scenarios include reaching out to people who work in the organization, in our archives, in our historical societies, who are not board members, who are not the chief person, who are not the state archivist, the archivist of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in my case. So we would be looking to bring in colleagues who work with us, and we've already done this in many cases. My colleague Veronica Martzel will be speaking later on in this meeting. So it's an example of sort of widening the circle, if you will. I don't think that that's particularly revenue positive per se, and the whole question is, you know, are we going to sort of move forward by having associate members or something like that? And I don't think that's really particularly helpful at this point to talk about that. What we want to try and do is to open up the membership of the Council of State Archivists to people who work in archives. And then from there, we'll kind of flesh out the details of what that looks like. But that's the starting point. We're already doing it, and we want to continue to do it. Other scenarios include reaching out to other sponsors, vendors, I guess you would call them, people who are involved in the same business we are, more or less. We're involved in government, but they're involved in service to government insofar as people, for example, like Family Search and things like that. We want to take a look at our mission statement, which I urge people to read as much as I am urging them to read the case for sustainability, and that's found out on our website under mission and then our strategic plan. So our mission statement, I think, is a good one, but the Sustainability Task Force has moved to kind of make it more inclusive, like we are talking about having our colleagues who work in state archives and historical societies, historical societies also be available to come to the meetings and to participate and things like that. We're talking about collaborations with some of the organizations I mentioned, NASCIO and these sort of our natural partners. So next slide, please. So we've got an excellent. Oh, damn, I'm done. I guess we can go back to the other one if you don't mind, and I'll finish that up. So any questions about this, I'll be glad to take at the end, or we can take them now. I'm not sure how you want to run this, Ann, but the fact of the matter is we have a Sustainability Task Force. It's done, I think, a good job. We're proud of the efforts we made. We haven't, I think, in some ways gotten too bogged down in details, only insofar as we want to try and get a very strong look, a very close look at where we are and where we're going, and we need the support of the membership. So at our mid-year meeting, we're going to present our report. The Sustainability Task Force will present its report, and we'll hash that out, and then we'll present the report to the overall membership in Boise in July. So any questions now, or shall I wait till the end, Ann?
Now is fine if people want to talk about it.
Great. That would be great. I realize it's a lot of information, and we haven't put other than the sustainability, the case for sustainability on the website, but it is something that the membership and the board have been concerned about at least for 3 or 4 years now anyway. So it's top of mind for a lot of people, and anyone's input is certainly welcome. Okay.
Okay. This is Tricia. I don't see any questions.
I did see Nancy Lenoy type something in that she's not in favor of expanding to staff. So, I mean, it's one of the scenarios that we had in mind. I can see, individually people run their own shops however they want to, obviously, but it's something that we're thinking about. I would be remiss, I think, if I didn't sort of allude to at least some of the scenarios that we've been coming up with, some of the sort of options before us, if you will, to help sustain the organization. So that's certainly well put.
Thank you, Jack. We appreciate that update. Okay, Nancy put in another question or another statement, so we'll keep track of that and have more opportunities for questions and answers at the end. Let's move on, giving the time to Jim about our advocacy efforts. Jim, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Tricia. So advocacy, there's a number of things that are going on currently, but let me kind of give you a background on where we've been. We have worked collaboratively with our partners at NAGARA, CoSA, NAGARA, SAA, and also RAC, which is the regional archival associations like MERAC and MAC and all of those. And we have put together a joint report for the Trump transition team that went out in December and asked them or shared with them issues related to the archives community. They included things like NHPRC, TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and there were other issues about security clearance, getting things vetted more quickly. There used to be a backlog, which is now gone, on documents that were classified and declassifying them. And those were the gist of the things. Also making sure that the Presidential Records Act has continued to be followed and those things are moved forward, and that the Trump administration support the archives and its mission. So that was kind of our overarching positive statement going to the transition team. That was in December, of course, when the election was settled. And then in August, we sent out, we came up with a statement on developing and maintaining strong state archives, and that's on CoSA's website, and also NAGARA, SAA, RAC, and CoSA all adopted that statement. You have a link here that tells you about the different programs that Advocacy is running. There's also information about how to be a strong advocate in there. I wanted to spend most of my time, though, talking about the next issue, which is the Federal Budget Watch, and really it's a little bit broader than that. We have been notified that it's Representative Jason Chaffetz from Utah, Patricia's very own Jason Chaffetz.
Yay, Utah.
Yes. He chairs the House Oversight Committee still, and he has sent notice to the National Archives asking for information about NHPRC, specifically all the grants they've given ever, and all of the grants in the last 10 years that were both given and not given. So if one of you applied for a grant from NHPRC but didn't get it, there's summary information about all of that he's asked for and has now received. And the guess is that because in prior years, or at least 2 years ago, he tried to get NHPRC eliminated, that he may be working to try and find ammunition to do that again. I tell you all this because we may be on a hair's trigger to respond to threats against NHPRC, because as the chairman of the committee, he can bring something up in the committee and it can be heard within 3 days and then sent to the floor. And so we won't have lots of time to react should he move in that direction. It is also possible he is simply trying to do oversight and try to understand better what NHPRC is all about. The National Archives shared with Mr. Chaffetz that they would be totally open to working with him if he has suggestions or reforms that he would like to see occur within the National Archives, and specifically NHPRC, and they haven't heard back. But I think the information only went to Chaffetz like last Friday. We are working on getting that information. We have Kathleen Williams is on vacation this week, but it sounds like most of the information that was provided to them is on their website, with the exclusion of those people who have applied for grants and haven't gotten them. And that information is somewhat confidential, and they've asked it not to be shared beyond the committee. But we're going to try and get that so that we can make sure that we understand where Chaffetz might go and head things off should we end up there. So that's that piece. That's really not the budget. It's separate from the budget. It's the oversight part. On the budget, it appears that President Trump's administration is closely attempting to follow, or at least the rumors are, attempting to follow the there's a right-wing organization called the Heritage Foundation that has developed a 2017 fiscal plan. And in there is the recommended elimination of funding for NEH and NEA. It does not, however, approach the issues of IMLS / LSTA or any changes to the National Archives funding. So if that's the plan they follow, and they submit a request from the National Archives for $5 or $6 million or whatever it's going to be for NHPRC, it's likely that Chaffetz will not get his way, and there'll probably still be funding for NHPRC. If the President budget excludes funding for NHPRC and Chaffetz moves forward, then we're a little bit more at risk. The Advocacy Committee, working with the Joint Advocacy Committee, which is all those organizations, and the National Coalition of History, is working very diligently to talk to some key lawmakers who have been very influential in the House in saving NHPRC in the past and getting them notified that there might be an issue. We're not ready for any of you to take action yet. We really want to be in a holding pattern so that Representative Chaffetz doesn't turn around and start saying, well, why am I getting all these questions? All I'm doing is asking stuff as in my role as the chair of the Oversight Committee. I'm hoping I'm making sense to all of you, but that's some of what's going on with all of that. We will be working on having materials ready to go should Jason Chaffetz roll out a get rid of NHPRC thing. NHPRC is not an organization that is currently authorized by Congress, which is also another perilous place to be. So we have that to deal with. On other issues, we are working, we have a draft, it's not final yet, of a letter to go to the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, asking her to help us with supporting archival issues and particularly digital preservation issues, and seeking what role the National Librarian and the Library of Congress would like to play in that area, since they've dropped NDSA, DEPO, and a lot of other things that they've done in the past, NDIP. So we're hoping that they will, well, we want to make sure we understand what the direction is that they're providing or going to be headed related to digital preservation. And then lastly, the board is meeting in mid-April or late April, as you can see there, and during that there will be a briefing in Washington, D.C. again with many of our colleagues and other groups like the National Governors Association, the National Association of Secretaries of State, NASCIO, et cetera. And while there, we will go and do some Hill visits and meet with some key legislators to keep developing our relationships there. We found that going there with very specific agendas has been extremely helpful. So we're going to continue that, I hope. And if there's any questions, I think I covered the highlight. I would just ask, could you make sure that you are ready to take action, that you are, you might want to kind of just forewarn maybe the Shrabs and others that there might be an issue coming our way. I would just suggest that. And I think I just saw something pop on my screen about Steve Murray. Steve asks about the museums, the humanities groups, librarians all working together for advocacy days. There is an advocacy day done for the humanities, and the NE8, or the National Coalition for History, has always been a big part of that. That will continue. In fact, I think last year Barbara and I were in D.C. when that was happening. And so we've been invited to participate in that. We're a little concerned, quite honestly, Steve, that the challenge we may face is that NEH and NEA are going to be really big targets, and there will be lots of focus on that, and NHPRC may just get eliminated under the radar, where only we are kind of raising a ruckus about that. And so we're doing what we can to make sure that NCH and then the National Humanities Alliance are aware of the potential challenge we're facing here. So I hope that kind of answers your question. And Steve is also sharing with us the different dates that these groups have for advocacy in D.C. Patricia, I think that's it, unless there's any other questions.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Let's now move on to our SERI update and turn the time over to Veronica.
Okay, we're actually going to start out with Barbara.
Okay, we'll turn the time over to Barbara.
Thank you. This is Barbara Teague. As many of you know, most of you know, I'm working on a couple of different contracts with CoSA, and one of them is to work with SERI issues. One of the things that I'm doing is helping wrap up the grant, the IMLS grant that we actually got first in October 2012. But we got we've had one year extension and another 6 month extension. So by the time we reach this March 31st deadline, we will have been working under this grant for 54 months. Can you believe that? A couple of the other things that I'm doing, I'm helping Veronica and Tim Baker, who are the co-chairs of the SERI Steering Committee, with some coordination between the subcommittees. And I'm writing an assessment report of the state electronic records, which I know everyone is waiting to help me read and refine and make better, and also working on seeking additional funding for SERI, because as Jack said earlier, all grants must come to an end, but then since we don't really have other funding, we must try to find other grants. What we're doing with this IMLS grant right now, you all probably have, I think I sent an email to let you know that we don't really have all of the documentation that we need to have. So Becky Julson has been contacting people to make sure that they've done their evaluations for classes that they have attended, and also that anyone who received a scholarship is going to complete the training and not let the scholarship go to waste. So she's been following up on that. We're also going to send out a final survey. The Education Committee, the Tools and Resources Committee, the Steering Committee, and the Advocacy Committee are all going to take a look at the survey and see what we need to ask people before the end of the grant. Obviously, we're not going to have time to get everything tabulated before the end of the grant, but we do have a 3-month lag time before we turn in the final report to IMLS, so that will give us time to finalize all the information. One thing I've noticed in, trying to figure out what's been going on with the grant and in working on the State Electronic Records report, we're a pretty amazing group of engaged people who really worked hard on this grant and on other SERI things. So we had the grant from the National Historical Publications and Records Commission for the PERTS portal. We had another grant to look at stakeholder groups and make a plan to collaborate with stakeholders. I mean, we really have done a great deal in the few years that we've been involved in SERI. So I just applaud everyone who's worked on this project so far. I encourage you to stay involved. The things we're working on to get ready for the funding running out in March is applying for more funding from, we're going to try IMLS again. You notice the two they're preliminary proposals that are listed on the slide that you see, because IMLS works with a preliminary proposal, a 2-page, just a short description of what you're going to do, and then if you're accepted, you're invited to apply for a longer grant proposal, and then you hope you get that too. For these proposals that we're submitting, we actually submitted both of them against the last IMLS deadline, which was in September, and we were not invited to apply. We got some good reviews from the grant reviewers and suggestions to improve the proposals, and we also talked with our program officer at IMLS, Emily Reynolds, who gave us some pretty good advice, and she's reading a draft of the proposals before they're submitted and giving us advice, which we had not done last time, so we're hoping that will help us. But the first grant is it's really Veronica and the Tools and Resources brainchild to look at what environments exist currently where we could share testing of digital preservation tools. So we've gotten some people to help participate in that with us. SAA will help us send out a survey. We have participation from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So we sort of strengthened what we were saying we were going to do before and focused on just looking at what the environment is. Do these platforms exist? Could they be shared with CoSA? So we're hoping we get a better result this time. And the second grant is a National Leadership Grant, because there are two different programs in IMLS. The first one is the Laura Bush 21st Century Librarianship Program, which our current IMLS grant is funded under that program. But the National Leadership Grant is for implementing parts of our Access Action Plan that came out of our previous planning grant we had with IMLS to work with stakeholders. And this is pretty ambitious. We're going to work with 4 partner organizations, the National Association of Chief Information Officers, the Chief Officers of State Library Agencies, the National Association of Secretaries of State, and Ann Eckerson, our Executive Director, just got the National Governors Association to sign on as a partner. So we're really excited about that. But what we would do in this grant is work with these groups to help send out information, best practices, give presentations to them about digital preservation, so that we're able to we're working at this association level to try to get and push information down to the members about digital preservation in state government, how important it is. So keep your fingers crossed for that one. We're also going to start looking at some other non-governmental funding sources. We recently became aware of a Mellon grant that was given to form a task force on technical approaches to email archives, and then found some information that Mellon might be interested in, like email and government information. So we're going to look at that more closely. And by the way, on the task force, CoSA has signed on to be, we're not a member of the task force because we tried to get ourselves invited after the fact, but it didn't really work. But we're going to be part of a friends group of the task force where we're going to review information that they send us. So that's all I have, and I will turn it over to Veronica when we're finished with the SERI portion. If you have questions for either of us, we'll answer that then.
Okay. Thank you so much, Barbara. Really want to take this opportunity to, on behalf of the SERI Steering Committee, to really thank Barbara for all the work and all the energy she has brought to the Steering Committee to keep us moving. That 52 months, I think she said, is a really long time to be in a grant, and we really appreciate all the help she's provided. I'm here today to provide a quick update on the SERI subcommittees and some of their activities. Our Advocacy and Outreach subcommittee is divided into 3 working areas. The first of which is they have been working on various spotlight articles, which really highlight some of the innovative and important work being done around electronic records in various state archives. To this point, they've published 2 of these spotlight articles, one on Maryland's web harvesting, and then one on Hawaii's outreach and advocacy in support of digital preservation. They are always looking for additional projects to highlight, so if you have a program that you'd like to see written up and shared on the CoSA website through this program, the co-chairs for the Advocacy and Outreach subcommittee are Christine Garrett in Georgia and Kathleen Rowe. Additionally, Barbara mentioned the State of State Electronic Records Report. Advocacy and Outreach is working closely on that as well. And really, sort of the backbone of this committee has for a long time been their social media campaigns, particularly Electronic Records Day. And a shout out to Chris Denson in Oregon for all of his work in really shepherding that program. This year we should have some good turnout coming forward on 10/10. It falls on a Tuesday, so we don't hit a weekend like we did a couple years ago. We don't hit a federal holiday like we did this past year. So really looking forward to seeing some great participation in Electronic Records Day down the road. The committee is looking to expand their activities, highlighting other various days or weeks during the year, starting out with Sunshine Week, which will be coming up in March. So I imagine we will be putting out some guidelines and some information on ways we can really support and drum up support for Sunshine Week moving forward. Okay.
All right.
Next slide. Okay, next committee is Education and Programming. And just a quick highlight, they do a lot. I have listed here, they've been really focused lately on the CoSA preservation webinars, both the key concepts, sort of a trio of digital preservation 101 webinars that'll be coming up, as well as really expanding their offerings to include information for sort of our allied professions in state archives, the IT professionals and practitioners we're working with, maybe some of the decision makers that we'd be looking at, working with and trying to explain to them the importance of digital preservation. Additionally, there are a series of sort of 1 hour, very hands-on practical how-to webinars, highlighting approaches being taken at the various state archives to address various issues like storage is one that I participated in recently, and I believe there's some around possibly audiovisual coming up. So if you're interested in those, there is a listing there for the URL to find out more information and to register for that. And the co-chairs for that committee are Sarah Grimm from Wisconsin and Bonnie Weedle from New York. And then finally, our last update, slide please, is for tools and resources. And Alan Ramsey from Connecticut and Nick Conizzo from Vermont are the co-chairs of this committee. They are in the process of working on sort of a best practices series. This, in some ways, is an outgrowth of the Implementing Access grant that Barbara alluded to earlier. The subcommittee met and decided that they really wanted to, even if we can't continue at maybe the rate that grant funding would allow us to do, we wanted to continue moving towards some of the goals that were laid out in that Access Action Plan. So for a first step, they are working on digitizing project management plan. So really breaking down the steps of digitization into sort of infographics, 1 or 2 pages that would allow you to either work individually or string the steps all together for planning out and managing a digitization project over time. Really having this a resource not only for ourselves, but also for a lot of our records creators to, hopefully help influence some of the choices they make so that down the road we're getting more sustainable digital files from them when they are transferred into our custody. And again, once we get to the end, if anybody else has questions about what SERI's been up to, be happy to address those, and we're always happy to take more volunteers if anybody thought that sounded like something they really wanted to participate in. Thank you.
And this is Barbara. I just had a couple of things to add about the digital preservation workshops that are coming up. You notice that for the one that we just had last week, or I guess it was this week, that was for IT managers, you received a template invitation that you could use. That we were trying to make it as easy for you as possible. All you really need to do is peel out just put your name and the name of the state archives somewhere in the template for the document. So you actually had an invitation that you didn't really have to write anything unless you wanted to personalize it that you could send out. We're going to do the same thing with the workshops for the records officers that are coming up, and it's a series of 3 one-hour workshops that I think your records officers will all be very interested in attending. So thanks to Kathleen and the Advocacy Committee for writing these templates for us to use. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Barbara and Veronica, for the updates. Now let's turn to the next part of the program, which is the awards programs, and we'll turn the time over to Shelley.
Hi, everybody. I am going to talk to you for a couple minutes about awards, the Council of State Archivists Awards programs, and let you know about the deadlines that are coming up really pretty quickly. The awards program was designed to acknowledge institutions and individuals that have strengthened our state's and territorial archives. And we have 5 awards that are coming up with deadlines on May 1st. So one of them is the Walsh Leadership Award, which is named after CoSA's first executive director, Vicki Walsh. And this award is designed to recognize leadership, outstanding contributions of an individual, talking about creatively and effectively meeting challenges, serving its constituency, exceeding expectations. These are all wonderful things that should be recognized, and previous award recipients include Vicki, Christine Ward, Julia Marks-Young, and Kathleen Rowe. So that award deadline is due May 1st. We've also got the Vicki Walsh Travel Stipend Award, which encourages emerging leaders in state and territorial archives by providing one stipend for them to attend the Council of State Archivists annual meeting. In order to be eligible, the nominees have to be individuals who have worked in a state or territorial archive less than 5 years and who have never attended a CoSA annual meeting before. Previous recipients have been Veronica Martzel and Chris Stenson, and again, that is also due May 1st. The Advocacy for Archives Award acknowledges individuals and organizations that have made significant contributions to efforts by state and local governments to ensure preservation and availability of the American Historical Record. These recipients receive a certificate, and previous recipients include U.S. Senator Orrin Hatch, Friends of the Georgia Archives, and U.S. Representative David Price. And that is also due May 1st. The Rising Star Award is basically exactly what the name of it is. It acknowledges outstanding contributions by individual staff members or teams that they have made to their state archives and constituencies. And there's quite a few that have received that award before. The Massachusetts Archives, Simmons College, and Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners for the Massachusetts Municipal Clerks Archival Education Program. The Library of Virginia for its Governor Tim Kaine email project. Susan Lugo of the U.S. Virgin Islands Territorial Archivist for her professional efforts within her institution to raise awareness on best practices. So those are examples of past recipients for that Rising Star Award. And the last one that's due May 1st is the CoSA and HPRC SHRAB Award of Merit. And that is given to a state SHRAB project or program that results in strengthening the condition or access of documents and records in the state. Previous recipients have been New Mexico SHRAB and Oklahoma SHRAB. And projects, in order to be eligible, the projects have to have been carried out in the year before the award is given. There can be progress or objectives over past years or multiple years, but it should be carried out during the year in which the award is given. And SHRABs are definitely encouraged to self-nominate. That would be great. And then we have a little bit longer, but you've got a couple more months, but in September, the CoSA Ancestry Leadership Award is due September 15th. And we've received some generous support from Ancestry in order to underwrite an award. They're undertaking strategic plan commitments to facilitate next generation leadership. And for this award, you can get a $1,000 reimbursement for individuals or $2,000 for groups of mid-level managers that will help promote and develop their professional potential. And last fall, Sarah Grimm and Abby Norderhaug from Wisconsin Historical Society and James Kitchis from Utah received that award. So please keep those in mind. We would like to receive plenty of applications for those awards. That would be great. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Shelley. And I'd also like to note that as these awards, the deadlines come closer, you'll be receiving updates in your email box to remind you that these awards are coming. So let's turn to the next slide. There it is. I'd like to remind everyone about the CoSA annual meeting, and it's coming this July 12th, which is this Wednesday, in Boise. We'll begin that morning with a SHRAB symposium, which is being underwritten by the NHPRC so that we can have a really good discussion about SHRABs and their functions and their workings within each state. We will also have that day lunch and work sessions, and we'll end up with a dinner and annual business meeting in the evening. So it will be a very busy day. It is right before NAGARA's annual meeting, and we have Thursday, July 13th, our luncheon and award ceremony, which we will be in conjunction with that. And so the award winners that will be selected will be announced during the award ceremony. So let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to turn the time over to Ann.
Thanks very much, Tricia. These are familiar to you, but we thought it would be a good idea to remind you that prep templates and envelopes are always available on the CoSA website. They're located in the emergency preparedness section of the website. The template is now available in Spanish and Portuguese, and we'd love to have it translated into other languages. So if any of you can help us with that, please let me know. I think the more we can put it into different languages, of course, the more global it can be. You may order quantities of envelopes at discount prices for your staff, for workshops and other training programs. Just contact me about that, and we'll get them to you. Rescuing Family Records by David Carmichael, well known to all of us, both the booklet and the person, was updated by David within the last couple of years. And I certainly welcome opportunities, welcome inquiries about bulk ordering for workshops, or for those of you who have shops, you might consider putting it for sale in your shop. So any kind of resale opportunities you'd like to explore with me, I'm happy to talk with you about that. So you can certainly order the envelopes and Rescuing Family Records from our website in the shop area of the website. But if you want your member discounts and bulk discounts, please be in touch directly with me. Thank you.
All right, we did have a question that I saw going by, I believe from Sean, which was about reimbursement, and I wanted to mention that, yes, reimbursement for the annual meeting is going to be available on the same basis as in previous years, plus the additional time that might be needing to be spent for that early morning or that morning NHPRC SHRAB meeting, so there will be reimbursement available. Are there any other questions? And I actually can't see questions on my screen, so someone will need to see if there are other questions that we haven't answered. Ann, are there?
At this moment, there aren't, but sometimes it takes a little while for people to type in questions. So let's just wait a moment to see if folks have questions.
This is Barbara. I have a question for everyone who's on here. In addition to the SERI Advocacy Committee and the SERI Steering Committee, I have some other people lined up to do a first read of the draft of the State of State Electronic Records Report, and I didn't know if any of the attendees today, if you're interested, send me an email and I'll be sure to send you an early copy.
That's a great idea, Barbara. I think the more folks we can have involved in that preliminary read-through, the better the document will be.
Right. The more I'm working on assembling it, the more I see that we need a lot of eyes to make sure that I'm not missing anything, and to also think about what our future plans are. So if you're interested, just email me.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I don't think there are any other.
I'm not seeing any
questions. If you find that you have some afterwards, feel free to email us or email Ann, and we'll see if we can get some answers to them.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm just going over the chat box right now, and there are lots of good comments here, which we will definitely be taking with us and moving them forward through various conversations with our committees and so forth. So I want to remind folks that when we're done with the webinar, and we just have a few more slides to go, you'll be automatically referred to an evaluation form. And this is a really important part of the whole webinar process for our Education and Training Committee. It gives us an idea of what you thought about how we did, and also what you want to see in terms of webinar content going forward. This year, our webinars, we have 8 member webinars, and the overarching theme is about grants planning and management, and they are interspersed throughout the year with some of our reoccurring webinars. And the next one coming up is our SHRAB Town Hall on February 23rd. We do 2 SHRAB Town Halls a year. We invite you to invite your SHRAB's members to come and join us for those webinars. And on March 23rd, we're doing a reprise of the advocacy webinar we did last year, which was so very popular. And I thank Barbara and Jim for putting that all together. The CoSA Preservica webinar series is going apace as well. Veronica mentioned the upcoming Digital Preservation 101 webinar series, and in April they've got Preserving and Protecting Audio-Visual Files. You can find the entire series listing for the member webinars on our website under Programs. And the SERI, CoSA, Preservica, and any other SERI webinars, you'll find those listed in the PERTS portal. I know that SERI Education and Programming is planning a couple of additional webinars as well. There's a lot to take advantage of this year. Nancy's asking if the webinar slides will be on Basecamp, and they're not on Basecamp, Nancy. We have been posting slides on the website, and maybe Becky can talk, if she unmutes herself, can talk a little bit more about how how you can access all the webinars. Becky, can you explain that to everybody?
Sure. All of the recordings and the slide decks, and if there's any other supplemental materials, they are all posted on our website now that we have our nice new website up and running. And it's under Programs, Webinar Series, and then there's a separate page for the webinar presentation materials. And they're all listed there in reverse chronological order. So the most recent one will be at the top. And as soon as this is done and I have the recording converted, I will put those up there.
Thank you, Becky.
And,
yeah,
and I
go ahead.
Say, it looks like Jelaine has her hand raised, so I will unmute her to see if she has a question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Hey, this is, I just actually posted it. I see that Nancy had a question, and as a member of the Sustainability Committee, I wanted to make sure that the other members saw that. Nancy had a question that says, how about having a poll of the state archivists to get feedback on the issue of membership? So
yep.
Just wanted to make sure everybody saw that.
Yes, thanks,
this is Jack. I did see it, and we'd certainly be willing to do that. I think the emphasis should be on that that we're not like imposing our will on people. We're hopefully getting cooperation from all the state archivists and in sustaining the organization. So it's something that we definitely want people's input. So we can certainly do that, I think, Ann. Huh?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. I've made a note of it, too. So thank you, Nancy, for bringing that up.
Absolutely.
March 12th through 18th is Sunshine Week, and I know that the SERI folks are planning to do some social media around that, and so keep your eyes peeled for that. We have a quarterly newsletter, which I hope all of you are reading. The January newsletter came out about a week ago, and it's quarterly, and it's chock full of news, and so that's where you can keep up to date with upcoming programs and just news about member archives. So I want to give a shout out to our sponsors and funders. Each year, CoSA's corporate partnerships provide critical funding support for many CoSA membership activities and events. We're delighted to welcome SpaceSaver as our newest corporate sponsor. SpaceSaver is supporting the production of the 2016-17 ARM survey. which if any of you haven't filled out that survey, I would appreciate hearing from you. We're tabulating now, so if you haven't submitted survey data, please do, and those of you who have, thank you very much. We're also especially grateful to Ancestry and our other corporate sponsors featured here, Family Search, Apex Software, Preservica, and Gaylord Archival. And of course, a special thank you to our federal funders, NHPRC and IMLS, who support many of CoSA's program initiatives. We really appreciate that very much. And then lastly, as we're coming up on the hour, here are the ways to stay connected with us. Certainly through our website. We've thrown up a lot of website links in the chat box. If you haven't spent some time with our new website, not so new now, but new to many people, please do. There's a lot of information there, more coming on, and we want to hear from you about information that you want to see there as well. The PERTS portal has a growing resource list. We do have a Twitter account and, of course, our Facebook page. So stay in touch, and we'll try and be as responsive as we can. I think that's it, Tricia. Do you have any parting words at this point?
I don't. I want to thank everybody for their participation today. And to remember, if you do think of something, since I think there is some interest in about providing input into Sustainability Task Force, please at any time submit your suggestions and considerations and concerns to us so that we can include that in the investigations as we're looking forth in the sustainability. So thank you all for joining us.
And we'll see you next month. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Nice job. Take care. Bye.